Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Optimized Routing and Scheduling. In this one, I'm going to share with you a dynamic scheduling application that not only schedules jobs, but optimizes the route based on the lowest drive time and lowest distance. It's going to be incredible training. I can't wait. Let's get started. Okay, thanks so much for joining me today. We've got a really incredible training. I'm going to show you not only how to create a dynamic scheduler, but I'm going to show you how to optimize routes based on multiple start, multiple end locations, and unlimited jobs so that you can easily and quickly optimize the route based on the shortest drive time and distance very easily. It's going to be an amazing training. We can also have multiple selected staff, and it's going to be built all on this last week's. We created this work order. So we created this amazing work order last week with the drive time, with the directions and the map. So I've got that to show you. That was last week. So I'll include the links down below on that in case you missed that training. We're going to build upon that. Now I'm creating a scheduling based on those work orders. And then what I want to do is I want to optimize the route based on all the jobs on a specific technician on a specific day. We can quickly refresh the schedule on a click of a button. We've also got settings, so we can update the start date of the day of week. We can also set the company address, and we can also update the sample shape. So we've got a sample shape, so even if we wanted to just quickly change the color of it, we could easily quickly change the color of our scheduling just by clicking here. Let's say we wanted it a dark green, and then we refresh the schedule just by changing the technician and then changing it back. It's going to automatically update the color. So we've got a really cool training where there's so many features. So I want to get started right away. I bring these trainings to you each and every Tuesday. If you want the free workbook, all you got to do is click the link down below in the description. I'm going to send you that workbook right away through your email or of course through Facebook Messenger. Both methods will get you that workbook, so I want to make sure that you get on top of that. If all you need to do is simply subscribe to get notifications and click that notifications icon bell, because I want to make sure you don't miss an episode. If you do like these trainings, I've got an incredible opportunity for you. I've got a brand new mentorship program that just might be right for you. In this mentorship program, I'm going to take you every step through the development process from concept all the way to cash. And that's going to include the defining phase. We're going to define your application. We'll then take you through the design, where we'll focus on flowcharts, design, and scopes. Then into the development phase, we're going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to be developing my own accounting application during the entire process. That's going to complete with a comprehensive invoice. Also, we're going to do inventory, purchasing, credit memos, a complete dashboard, sharing and sync, and notifications, emails, and a whole lot more. So if that mentorship sounds like something for you, where you want to create and learn how to sell your own applications, I'm going to include the link down below. The mentorship program, myexcelmentor.com, will get you all the information. All right, let's get started on the training. I'm going to take you through every step of this. Let's go ahead and change the color, because I don't like that color. Something a little bit more consistent with theme, but I did want to give you a chance to show you just how easy it is to change those. And all we need to do again is we can hide those settings, and I'm going to show you how. We can also have a refresh schedule. It's going to be a great training. Now, if you missed it, last week we created this work order here, and what we did is we also created a map and the directions based on the change. So that was a really great training. I'm going to include the links down below. So what we did in that, we created this work order list. It was basically a list of jobs, the dates, the customers, the job address assigned to. And then I've added a little bit more. I've added something called an order onto that, and I'll show you what that means. And basically we have job addresses. So what I want to do is I want to take all of those jobs and I want to put it on a schedule. Now, we've done scheduling in the past, something like this, but this is brand new. We're not going to focus too much on the scheduling aspect, but we're going to focus on a really cool feature called Optimize Route. Now, when you have Optimize Route, we're going to use Google. Google Maps is going to help us. Google has the potential to help us optimize the route, which is the best route based on the starting and the ending address. And we also have, notice that we have employee address. We also have a brand new sheet called employees, and each employee has a home address. So that means if on our schedule we decide that we're going to be starting out at the employee address And then we want to finish off at the company address. Now the company address is located right here in E. We can hide and show those settings. I'll walk you through that. So let's say we decide now we want to optimize the route. It's going to sort these jobs in the order that you want, so that's going to be the lowest amount of drive time. So it's going to be really cool. And of course, if you change that on a different day, if they're going to be starting at a company address and ending up in an employee, we can also optimize those routes. We can save those changes so that when the schedule refreshes, that route's going to be optimized all the time. And then of course, we can send that out to the technician. So it's really a lot of features in this. I want to get started right away on this. So let's go over just a little bit of this application. Now remember, we're building it off the work orders, which we did last time. You can check out last week's work order. Work order list is just simply a list of work orders. Nothing too difficult in that. We're going to be running it through an advanced filter because I want to know a few information based on the specifics of that type of scheduler. All right, so we also have a work order list. We're going to be running it through an advanced filter based on the assigned technician, based on the date. We are going to, of course, we have a list of work order items. That's not going to change from last week. Nothing we need to do there. Or items, customers, job addresses, not much of change there. Employees, that's the only thing new. And we also have a calendar pop-up. This is the back end of a calendar pop-up. Why do we need the calendar pop-up? That's going to be on the schedule, and we'll be able to select any week. I only have a 1 week scheduled. I don't have any jobs on that week. Just on this week I have jobs. So you see how fast that is. And then we can use shapes. It's going to be really, really cool. We can build on this too. If I get enough views, I can add more features, but that depends on you. If you share this training, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a pop-up picture. I'm going to add kilometers, miles, and distances. So there's a lot I can do. I also want to add double click on this or single click to open up the work order. So much I can do on this, but then again, it all depends on your views and your shares and your likes and your comments. So that is up to you. All right, so let's get started on this. So basically what I want to do is I want to select between an employee address and a company address. Now we know that we have the employees here. Inside here, I've got an employee ID, an employee name, and a home address. So I want to extract the employee address just in case it's needed. So we've got a few things in our scheduling here that we need to make note of. First of all, I want to know the selected employee. Now I've got a drop down list here. Now this is a form based list because I didn't really have room for it on the scheduler, so I just wanted to place it here. Now if we right click here and we click in the format control, we can see that it's based on an input range called employee names. Now it's a dynamic named range that I created here, employee name. So it's just basically as our employees grow, so will this named range grow. It's based on the offset. I'll walk you through that, but you've seen that before if you've seen any of my videos. Dynamic named range, so it grows as it. Okay, also we have a cell link, B2, so that means that in B2, if I change that employee here, so if I change it from the second employee, this is going to change to number 2 here, and the third one third. So basically what I need to do is now that I know what number of employees, I want to get the home address. So how do I do that? So this one is the selected employee's home address. Now I have that. So what I want to do is I want to run an index formula based on this row here. So what am I going to index? I'm going to index the employees C3 through C999, and that's right here. Basically, I'm going to index here. I want to index this list. And if I want to index it, the row number is whatever row number has been displayed here, and then the column is going to be 1 on that index. So let's walk through that index right here. So we're indexing all of the addresses. The row is going to come directly from here. Note if it's row 1, it's going to be 1, and we're going to have the single column. So that's really simple. That's going to return our address. So as we change this number here, so will the employee address, because I need to know that employee address. That way inside the code, if we're going to starting from the employee address, I need to get that address right here. What else do I need to know? I want to know the date of the selected day. So if I select a specific day on the calendar, let's say 9, I want that date to show up here. So I'm going to show you how we do that in a moment, but that's basically it. So as soon as we send, now what else I want to do is I want to set the first day of the week, and I also want the start day of the week. Let's just take a look at that. What's the first day of the week? Let's click on that. I've got Sunday as my first day of the week, but if I were to change that to Monday, in fact, I should run as soon as let's change this 𝐸2. I'm going to show you that in a moment. As soon as I change 𝐸2, I want that schedule to refresh because that's quite the difference. So I'm just going to go back into Visual Basic, make that update right now, and then we'll walk through it again. I just want to make sure that that's all I need to do is just make sure that when we make a change to B3 or 𝐸2, I want that schedule to refresh because it's kind of important. So now when we go ahead and change that, automatically that schedule is going to refresh, and that's just what I want. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull it a week where we have data, which is this week right here. And so now we see, now if it changes on Monday, we've got Monday scheduled, and if we go back to Sunday here, Sunday, so all the jobs change based on that, and then let's just set the different week here. Okay, it would be this week here. All right, so that's the way I had it. So basically now when we change the start date, will automatically update. So even if we change it to Monday here, it's going to update accordingly. So we've got that. All right, so basically what I want to do is I want to determine the first day of the week. And the best way to do that is we're going to match 𝐸2 based on a weekdays. Now, what is weekdays? Well, weekdays is a named range that I created. And if we go into the formulas here, and then the name manager, let's get out of here, let's get out of that formula here. And then formulas name manager, click on the weekdays, so I'll just click weekdays, and we tab over using the tab key, and we see all the way down here in A34 through A40, all I've done is create a list of days. So what I want to do is I want to find a match. I want to base a match based on this selection. So the best thing to do is match 𝐸2 weekdays. I want an exact match, and if there's an error, I just want to return 1. And what that's going to do is create this. So Sunday is going to be 7, Monday is going to be 1. And that's just what I want, so that I can set them. So now what I want to do is I want to create the first start of the weekday, which is going to be this, located right here in G2. So to do that, I need a formula. So we're going to start out with B3, which is the selected day, the day that we've selected on the calendar, minus the weekday of B3, minus the weekday, and then 2. We want the return type as 2. Why do I want the return type as 2? What does that mean? When we go into the weekdays, let's go ahead and click on the return type. If we click on the return type, we see in the weekday function here, actually, in the weekday function, we notice in the description, we see that if we go all the way down here, we see that when we select 2 as an option, we see that Monday through Sunday. Monday is 1, Sunday is 7. That's just what we want. Why is that? Because in our list here, Monday is also the first one. So we're mimicking that list here. That's what I want. It's that list that I want to mimic. So I want to make sure that Sunday is, in this case, Monday is the first one. So 2 is the one we're using for our formula. It's 2. Then I'm simply going to add B4, which is the number of the day of the week. That is going to get us our first day of the work week. Then, as long as we have that first day of the week based on whatever start date, all I need to do is a formula in here simply equals whatever's here. That way, as soon as we change this date, so does the start date. And all I need to do here in the subsequent formulas is simply add 1, all the way up until Sunday. That's going to get us all the days of the week. So that's it. So that's all I have really. It's very, very easy as far as the admin. So we can hide that. Again, I'll hide that in a minute. Let's just bring those down. So basically the only thing that we're going to be using in the future through VBA is this B6. What is the employee address? Because I need to know if the start date is employee address, I need to pull and extract this particular address because that's what I want, this address, the employee address. But if it's the company address or both, then I'm going to extract what is here in E3. That is it. So it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of it, and I've just created this little admin so we can hide this admin so we don't need to see it. And of course, normally you would just hide these columns, and we got a nice scheduler here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the VBA and see just how we created this. The first thing I want to focus on is this schedule refresh. That's the macro that runs this when we schedule. Now, I've added a little bit of code, or actually I've commented out a little bit of code, and I'll show you why. When normally you'd want to, what you want to do is you want to save this route, but I decided not to, just so we could quickly, easily keep optimizing the route, just so once it's optimized. So I'm going to show you that. Basically, do you want these changes to be permanent inside the schedule? And we can have that so that the next time we refresh this schedule, the route is automatically optimized. But I've left that out for now. That way we can keep working with it so it's not always optimized. We don't want it optimized always while we're training because I want to continue to show how we optimize it. Okay. Also, so let's take a look at the schedule refresh macro. That is in our module here. We're going to pull that up, And here's our application into VBA. If you don't have the Developers tab open here, Alt F11 will get you there. Also, the Visual Basic will get you there. And also, if you want to see the developers, you can click on the options here, Customize ribbon, and make sure you have Developers tab selected right there. Okay, moving on. So once we're into the Developers tab, we've got a little bit of an on-sheet code, just a little bit in the scheduling. Let's just take a look at that. Notice the first thing we did, any change to B3 or E2, we want the schedule to refresh. And what does that mean? On date or day change, we want this on date or day change, then refresh schedule. Refresh schedule. All right, so that's it. So also this little bit of code here, basically what we're gonna do is when we're dealing with this particular shape-based pop-up, this is a shape-based calendar right here. If for some reason it's missing, what I need to do is I need to take it from this hidden sheet, which should be hidden, take this calendar, which is a backup, and put it back right on here. So that's exactly what we're going to do just in case it's missing. So if this calendar gets deleted, we get it replaced through a macro. I'm going to walk you through that real quick. Okay, so basically what we want to do is if this is selected and they select anything else, I just want to hide it. So anytime it's visible, if they select another cell, I want that hidden. So let's take a look at that on the scheduling here. So on air resume next, if set calendar is calendar. So on air resume next, and on air goes 0. That means if there's an error when we set this calendar, when they make any selection change, that means the calendar doesn't exist. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this macro, replace calendar, and I'll go through this macro just briefly through you. So when we click definition, we can see that in this macro, we're going to, from sheets 7 here, actually sheet 7, actually not sheet 7, I want to change that to sheet 9. Sheet 9, calendar copy. I want to copy it from the pop-up sheet, from the pop calendar up. Okay, I want to copy it from the calendar pop-up, and I want to place it in the active sheet. So we're going to copy that back up and paste it right there. That's all I have to do. The rest of these macros are for calendar. We're not going to go over that because that's not the focus of this particular training. So let's get into the scheduling macros. That's the one I want to show you. So the first thing we have is hide settings and show settings. These two macros are very, very simple. All we want to do is pretty much do a few things. I just want to display columns D through F. I want to make sure that they're unhidden, and I want to display this sample shape. This is the sample shape that we're going to use to create all the shapes, and I want to display this particular icon, the hide settings button. I want to show that, and I want to hide the other one. Once this is clicked, I want to do the opposite. I want to hide those columns and display this. That's just what we're going to do inside these macros. So with the hide settings, this particular macro, sheet 7, that's our scheduling, we are going to hide the settings button. Hide settings button, that is this button right here. This is the one, hide settings button. I want to hide this. So we want to do that, and we also want to make sure we are showing this one right here, show settings button. So we need to do that as well. So the sample shape, I also want that hidden. I don't want to show that sample shape, and I want to display the show settings button. Then also I want to hide those columns. Columns D through F, I want to hide. In the opposite, in the show settings, we're going to do completely opposite of that. In the hide settings, we're going to display that button. We're going to hide, we're going to show the sample shape, make that visible, hide the show settings button, and then also columns D through F, we want to make sure that those are not hidden, so hidden equals false. And then I want to select something else, just so we select something inside. That way they can make the changes. So when I click here, I want to make sure that E2 is selected so they can change the date or something like that. Okay, so we understand that. That's relatively simple. So let's move on to the schedule refresh. This is the macro. So again, let me walk you through what pretty much I want to do to it. So I want to determine the first day. I want to step through every single day here. I want to determine the date, and then what I want to do is I want to go into the work, and I also want to determine the technician, right? The technician or staff. I want to determine that, and we can determine that, of course, by which number has been selected. So when we unhide this, we know it is going to be employee or staff number 1, okay, based on what's located in B2. So I want to take that information, I want to go into the work order list. I want to, with a formula, I want to put that technician right here, and I want to put that date right here. So we're going to step through all 7 days. The first day, we're going to run an advanced filter. So any particular scheduling work order that's on this particular day, notice that's an unformatted date. That's what I want. Okay. Remember, when you see something like this, it's actually a date. So if I were to format this and go into change it to date, you're going to see that that's a date. But we want to keep it unformatted. Okay, I want to keep it in the number format because Problems can happen. You won't get sometimes results based on your own date formats. So anytime you're running an advanced filter based on the date, keep it in this numerical format. It's the best way to go, and it keeps you from having issues. Okay, nobody sees this, so it's going to be accurate. Don't worry, the right dates will be present, but we want to make sure that we have this in unformatted. So that's kind of important. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through every day of the week. Each day I'm going to put the date in here. Then I'm going to run an advanced filter based on the technician and based on that date. Then I'm going to have the results. Any jobs that are on that date, I want them to list here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to resort the list. So let's just take a look. Let's go ahead and put some days on the last day so that we can change. I'm going to change these two to 16 and 16 here. So I want them to appear on the last day of there. So let's go ahead and change that so we can get some results on the last day of the week. I believe that's on the last day, or 17 based on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh the schedule back into the schedule, and then I'm just going to refresh it. There's a button here that's going to refresh the schedule, and that's going to, actually I want it on the 17th, actually 17th. So let's go ahead into the work order list because I want this date. Let's go ahead and click on that date back based in the date format. You see this date is the last date, so that's fine. That's what I want. Here's the 2 dates. All right, let's just update these to 17. I want these on the last day of the week because that's what's going to be the last field, and I want some results to show up in the last day. So let's put these on 17. We'll go ahead and refresh the schedule, and that's exactly what I want. Let's take a look. Refresh the schedule. They're going to be on the last day of the week. That's what I want, these two. Then let's go ahead and put that in numerical format. That's what I want. But you can see here it's the 17th. That's what I want. So you can see, and actually we can do it in whole number, not the whole number, just general is fine. Okay, so we want those results here, and then what I want to do is I want to do the order. I want to take that order and I want to sort it based on the order, because we're going to be able to update the order. Once we optimize it, we can update the order. So that's great. So we have the order. So that's what we're going to do. Then I'm going to, once it's sorted, I'm going to loop through each job, and I'm going to place it right here on the schedule with a shape, just like we did for these last two. And so now when we click optimize route, it's going to optimize this route. If it's not already optimized, there's just 2 here, so they're already optimized, but we have a larger one. Click on those. These 3 are going to switch the order of them. So now when I click optimize, it's going to automatically optimize that route accordingly. All right, so we got that shown. So basically what I want to do is I want to loop through every single day, get the results, and bring them onto the schedule. So let's walk through that macro. That's called the schedule refresh right here, schedule refresh. So if we're going to focus on with sheet 7, the first thing we want to do is application screen updating. Turn that off. That's going to help make things a little bit faster and remove any flashes from the screen. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to clear all the previous jobs from the schedule. Now what we want, we've got a lot of shapes in here, but we want to make sure, I want to clear all these jobs. I want to basically delete all these shapes. So how do we delete these shapes but not anything else? Well, if you see here, let's optimize that. So if you see here, this one's called Optim Route Day 1. This one's called Optim Route Button Day 2. But these particular shapes have a specific names in them. They all have the word job in them. So we can use that as a differentiating factor. Every single one of them, we've named them with the word job in them. Now, these are the only shapes in our sheet with the word job in them. Nothing else has the word job in them. So we can use that to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through the entire sheet. We're going to loop through all the shapes in the sheet. If the name of the shape contains the word job, then we can delete it. So that's just what we're going to do inside the code. So we're going to define job shape as shape. So all the way up here in dimension, job shape as shape. So that's going to help us. Since we know it is a shape, then we can then loop through them for each job shape in shapes. If in string the name of the shape contains job, and that would mean it does not equal 0. So if it contains one instance of the word job, this would be 1, and that means it's not 0. If that's the case, that shape does contain the word job. In that case, delete the shape. So we're going to do that for every single shape inside the sheet. So make sure that also that you don't have other shapes named, and always when you run something like this, make sure you save it before you actually run the macro, because if for some reason there's an issue, or you put equals 0 or something like that, it's going to delete every single shape in your sheet. So keep that in mind. It could be an issue. All right, but if you save it first, you can simply close it without saving it. Okay, so next up I want to focus on sheet 2. Sheet 2 is our work order list. That is the one. So that's what we have to do in this. We're going to determine the last row if for some reason the last row is less than 3, we'll exit out of it, the last row. And then what we want to do is run an advanced filter based on all this information, based on this criteria here, but we're going to set the criteria based on the date. So we need to also loop through the date. So I want to loop through the schedule starting at this date and going all the way to this date here. So what are we going to be starting on? So I want to start on a specific column. So we're going to start on column 7, and we're going to go all the way to column 25, all the way to column 25. I only want one per, right? I don't want 18 different steps. I only want 7. So how do we differentiate that? What we can do is step 3. Notice we have G, H, and I. So there's 3 columns per day. So we're going to go 7, 10, 13, 16, and so on. So we need to step 3. So that's just what we're going to do inside our loop. So with sheet 2, the first thing what we want to do is we want to get the start the weekday. And that's the first thing. The B5 is our starting weekday. I want to know what is our starting workday. B5 is going to tell us our starting weekday. Once we have that into a variable, remember, in this case, start weekday, our last work order row. In this case, it's going to be A, also in sheet 2. This should be sheet 7. Start weekday. I don't think we use that to start weekday. Sheet 7, right? Sheet 7 is our scheduling. Okay, so now at the last work order row A, we're gonna get the last work order row. If the last work order row is less than 4, then exit the sub. What does that mean? That means right here, actually, in our work order list, if it's I'm gonna make that 3. If it's less than 3, then exit the sub, because if there's no work orders, there's nothing we can do. So it should be 3. Okay, so assuming that there is data, we can move it on. What I want to do is I want to start tracking how many days there are. So I'm going to set the first day number to 1. This is the long. Now we're ready to make our loops through each day. Remember, we're starting at 7, our column 7, which is column G. We're going to go through every single day all the way to 25 here, stepping 3. That's going to allow us 1. So for the schedule column defined as long, 7 to 25, step 3. So we're going to do something for every single day. That means there's only 7 of those, 1 for each day. First thing what I want to do is I want to set the schedule date as sheet 7. That is our scheduling sheet. Row 2 schedule column. Our date is right here. It's in row 2, right? Our date's here. Row 2. So in this case, 7, 10, 13. So we have to set up that date. Now keep in mind that our schedule date right here is defined here. Keep this in mind. Schedule date as long. It's not a date. It's not a date. Why is that? Because I want it to go inside our criteria as a long, as a whole number. I want it to go here as a whole number. I don't want it as a date. So that's going to help prevent any errors on your advanced filter. Regardless of the format, it's still going to filter it properly because it's in long format. So keep that in mind. That's kind of a good hint there. Okay, so once we have that inside a long variable, the schedule date, I want to place that schedule date on sheet 2 in L3. That's going to place it right here inside L3. This, however, name is based on a formula. We don't need to place that here. This particular criteria is based on a formula. We're going to be indexing all the employee names, and we're going to base it on the row, whatever's in B2 of the scheduling. Remember, we have a drop-down list here, and that's affected here in B2. So if we have the first employee, we know that we can extract that employee name based on all the employee names here. Employee names are starting right here. So 1, if our response is 1, we know it is going to be Jeff Jacobs here. So we can extract that, and then the column would of course be 1. So inside our work order list here, the column here is 1 here. So once we've got the name, that's it. And then if there's an error, we're going to show empty. So that's going to get us our name through a formula, so we don't need to place that through VBA. We're only going to place the date through VBA. So now we have our 2 criteria so that we can run our advanced filter. Once we have that information here, we can then run our advanced filter. Where do we want to put it? I want to put it right here, all the way from P2 through V2. I want to take all of that information and place it here. Make sure that when you run your advanced filter, both the criteria header names and also the results names match your original data headers identically. If there's any error, any issue, it's probably because there's a missing or field name or incorrectly spelled field name. So what I do is just copy the names and paste them as values, or paste them into our criteria and into our results. Okay, so now we're ready to run our advanced filter. So now we've got our last row here, and now we're ready to run our advanced filter on sheet 2. A2, right? A2. Let's bring this down here. A2, starting here all the way to G in the last row. That's where we're going to run our advanced filter for original data here. Then what we want to do is the criteria is going to be K2 through L3 here, K2. And we want our results just what I mentioned in P2 through V2, and then unique equals false. So if all of our results are going to come here, P2 through V3. Then what I want to do is I want to determine the last results row. The last results row, if for some reason it's less than 3, that means there's no data. Otherwise, it's going to put it into a variable. So that's just what we do in the next line of code. The last results row using P, because that's a required job ID, going to get us our last row. If it's less than 3, then go to the next day, right? There's no current day. We just loop through all the days. So in this case, we're going to skip all of this and go right here. We're going to increment the day number and then go to the next column. So it's going to continue through all 7 days if there's no data. Okay, so assuming that there is data, we can then move on. Let's focus right here back. Assuming that there is data, we're moving on. Now what I want to do is I want to sort these fields. I'm going to sort them based on the order here. Why is this important? Because when we optimize a route, we're going to save that in the database. I want to save that new order here. So each time we optimize, we save that order. Although I didn't do it, I'll show you what line of code. So that way we can do it. So what I want to do is I want to sort it based on the order that it is there. So starting from the lowest to the highest, let's sort it based on whatever's in U. So the first thing we need to do is just clear any sorts that might exist here under sort fields clear. Then I want to add a key. U3 is the first cell in our data, which we're going to be sorting. U is the order. Then I want to sort ascending from lowest to highest. Then I want to set the range. It's going to start out at P3, our first row of data, all the way to V in our last results row. That's going to sort them based on this value, so lowest to highest. That's what I want, because when they get added to the schedule, I wanted the first to the last. So that's just what I do. Next up, I want to set the initial schedule row 6. Why is that? Because if we take a look at the scheduling, our schedule row starts on row 6 here. So that's the first place I want to place our first one. So we need to set that initial row. That is where we want to place our first job picture. Okay, so moving on. Once we've set that initial row, we can then move on. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a loop for the result row 3 to the last results row. So in our results here in our work order list, starting here all the way here, we're going to run a loop from 3 to the last one. For each one, what I'm going to do is I want to extract some information. I want to get the job ID, I want to know the order, I want to know the row perhaps, and I want to know the job address. That's going to be information. So let's go ahead and do that. The job ID is going to be located in P in the results row. The job date is going to be located in Q, and also the job address is going to be located in S. Once I have that, I can build the name of the shape. I want to build this name. I want each shape to have a unique name. Let's move this over here and bring it so we can schedule it. So each name, if we look at each shape, it's going to be day 1, job 3, or in this case, day 2, job 7. That way, each particular job has a very unique and different shape. Okay, so assuming that we have that, what we want to do is we set the shape name. The shape name is going to be the day number. Remember, we're tracking the day numbers, the job, and the job ID. So that's going to build our name of the shape. Next up, what I want to do is I want to take our sample shape. Remember, our sample shape is located right here. I want to take this sample shape and I want to duplicate it. And then I want to give it a new name. That new name is going to be whatever we just created, in case day 1, job 3, whatever it is. I want to create that. So that's just what we do inside the code here. So we create that. We take this sample shape and we duplicate it and we give it a name. It's going to be the name of the shape name. Once we have that name, we can then work with it in its brand new name. So with sheet 7, remember we're focused on with sheet 7 here, shape name, we can do some things. I want to place the left position based on the schedule row and based on the schedule column. The schedule row is going to start out at 6 and then increment. The schedule column is also going to increment based on that. So remember, we're starting at 7 on the column, then we're going to go to 10, then we're going to go to 13. So the first one, the first left position, in this case is going to be row 6, column 7. So it's our first position. That's where we're going to place it, assuming that there's a job there. So the left position is based on that schedule row, and I want to move it slightly over to the right, just 1 pixel. I don't want it right on the border. I want to move it just a little bit over. And I also want to move it just a little bit over from the top. I don't want it hugging the top too much. So I've added increment, just a 1 here, 1 pixel below, or 1 pixel to the right of the left and 1 pixel below. That's going to get us our position. Now I want to set the width. I want to basically set the width to the same width as whatever these 3 columns are. So that way, if I increase this column here and I refresh the schedule, it's also going to work accordingly. Notice now that it's refreshed. So this way, it always is going to automatically refresh. So that's kind of a really cool feature. Now let's just copy this. Now we copy this and bring back our column widths the way we had them. Right click, paste special, and then paste those column widths because that's what I want them all consistent. Click OK, and now of course all we need to do then again is refresh the schedule, and it's going to return back. So basically what I want to determine is the width of these 3 columns, and that's going to be the width of our shape. So that's just what do I do here. The width is equal to sheet 7 range. What is the range? The first part of the range is the schedule row, the schedule column. The second part of the range is the schedule row, the schedule column plus 2. The width minus 2. I've subtracted a little bit too because I don't want it as big. I want it just a little bit less than the current. I want a little bit less. That's going to get us our width, our dynamic width based on the column. Once I have that, I want to set the height. I'm going to set it to the row height because that way if I increase the rows, I want to increase the job rows. This is going to increase as well. So that's going to help. So I'm going to set the width based on that, the height of the range as well. So the height is going to be also the schedule row, the schedule column. And that way all we need to do is increase the height or lower the height of the rows, and the jobs will come with it. Next, I want to set the text frame, which is I want to set whatever text is in here. So we can do that. We can easily add job ID and add lots of information if we want. I just kept it simple for now. But so the text frame is going to be equal to the job address. The job address we've already defined up here based on column S. Now we want to make sure it's visible. It should be already, but we want to make sure visible. Now we've placed it. So what we're going to do is we're going to increment the schedule row plus 1. Now we're ready for the next job because we've incremented. So the next one's going to be in the schedule row 7. So now we have it. So now as we loop through our second, first, or second, or whatever, third, we continue to go down this until we get to the end. That's how we do it. So now we just go to the next result row and we increment the day numbers. Now the next day, when we increment the day numbers, we're going to move on, right? So that means when we go to the next column, for example, let's go back into the schedule. So it starts out, of course, at day number 1. Then it goes to the next column, day number 2, day number 3. That's how we get day number 2 here. We increment the day number so that our job shapes are different. So we use that as we loop through every single day. So that's it. That's all we need to really do to refresh the schedule. Now what we're going to do is we're going to up application screen updating true. That's it. That's how we update the schedule. Great. So I'm glad I got to show that to you. Now let's show you this another amazing feature, actually how we're going to optimize the route. So how do we do that? Well, the best way to do that is Google has that technology already. Google can help us. Google, the API using Google Maps already can do that for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a great website called Integromat. We've been working with that a lot. I'll include a video down below of explaining it because we've gone over Integromat before, but let's go ahead and show it to you. This is called Integromat. This is a great feature. We can set tons of scenarios, and we've been working with it a lot the past couple of weeks. But don't worry, if you haven't familiar with this, I'll walk you through a little bit of it, but I'll also include links down below to the first video that I created using this, where we walk through step by step. And so basically, when you want to create a new scenario, what we want to do is we want to create something called a webhook. Now, a webhook is something that's going to go in Excel, and it's going to let us send information to this website, and then we're going to get information back. And so what I want to do is I want to send addresses to that, and then I want to get the best route possible back. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and take a look inside the macro. We're going to focus on the routing macro. This is called optimize route. That's the one we're going to be focusing on right now. So essentially, what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and take a look inside the Google Maps platform. So essentially, what I want to do is I want to send a bunch of factors. I want to send, let's take a look here. We're going to send basically, I call it directions JSON type of API. I want to send this webhook to Google, and I want it to include an origin address. I want it to include a destination address, but more importantly, I want it to include something called waypoints. And waypoints are everything else that we have in here, and we have just that inside here. So what I want to do is I want to send an origin, well, this start address, which is the employee address, the end address, also known as the destination, and then every single one of these is our waypoints. Okay, so I want to send all that information to Google. In this case, it would be 7 different addresses: the employee's address, the company address as the end date, and then each individual waypoint. That's what Google is going to ask for in order to get the route. So back inside, let's just take a quick look inside Google. So what we want to do is we want to specify locations in the waypoint. right? These are waypoints, are all the addresses that we want the order. We know the beginning, we know the ending, but we don't know the order of the addresses, right? We know the beginning employee address, this particular address here, 1545 3rd Street, Santa Monica. And we know, in fact, if it's going to be the company address, we know the ending address here. So we've got the origin, we've got the destination, and now what we want to do is we want to put all this information inside a link and send it to Google. So what does Google ask for when we want to create it? Well, Google's asking for these waypoints. If we click on the waypoints in here, the Google Developers API here, it's going to have information about API. Basically what it's going to say is we need to create these waypoints, and we can say, so here in this, we're going to send them this link. We're going to send the origin equal to our address. Our address will be the origin. We're going to send the destination here. In this case, the destination is Concord. We're going to send them the address. Then what we're going to do is we're going to send them the waypoints. And every single address, we just need to know, is to be separated by this. They call this the pipe or something. So it's just a straight line up. So every single address, we need to separate that. And then, of course, the API key. And then, of course, the API key. But that's all done in Integromat. So that's just what we're going to do inside Integromat. We're going to create something called an API call. We're going to create a webhook, and it's going to send this information, and we're going to send it to API call. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all that data and iterate through it, and then we're going to get a response. And so what does something look like? Let's go ahead and run this. And while it's running, and I'm going to show you just how we're going to go ahead and optimize this route by clicking here. And then it's going to record all the information so we can see what Google sees. So now it's got information. And let's go ahead and take a look at that to see what it says. So the first thing we said is we have an origin, 1545 3rd Street. So this is the webhook. I'll walk you through that in just a bit. So I want to give you a rundown. We have a destination, Joliet Avenue. Let's take a look at that to make sure it's right. We have an employee address as the start. This is our start date, the 1545 3rd Street. That's correct. We have the destination, Joliet. So let's take a look at that, make sure that that's incorrect. That's correct. And now we have our waypoint, 11100 West Olympic Boulevard. We have separated by a pipe, 12100 West Olympic Boulevard. So we have all that information. So all we need to do is extract that information. So bring this information in there, and it's already been optimized. Notice it's already, so if I refresh the schedule, let's go ahead and refresh it because I'm not saving. I'll show you how to do that. I'm not saving it. So here is the order that it was sent, 11100, 12, 20, 6800, 2100. So that's the information was sent. So once it comes back, it's going to tell us the order, the correct order that it should be based on that. So let's go back into that. So we're going to send, that's what the output is. That's what the output is. So we have that information. It's going to go into Google Maps. So how do we create this webhook? How do we do that? Let's take a quick look at that. Inside our scenario, what we're going to be doing is basically we're going to create a scenario. We're going to click on the webhooks. Webhooks allows us Excel to talk. So I'm going to click talk to Integromat. So I'm going to click webhooks. And another one we're using is called the Google Maps. Now last week I went over how to connect Google Maps. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and connect that because that's just a process of how to connect. I'll include the links down below. That's our work order, get directions, and get the map. So click on Google Maps and we continue. So the first thing what we want to do is we want to click on here and create a custom webhook. Now we just click, we add a name. We can add any name you want here. It doesn't really matter. What that's going to do is provide a unique webhook. And then we just have a test hook. Let's hit it and then click save. And what that's going to do is automatically give us this webhook here. So when we copy that, we're going to copy that. That's what we're going to bring inside our macro. Now when you get this workbook, when you download it, keep in mind, many people say, hey, it doesn't work. Of course, this webhook is my webhook, right? I'm going to remove this before I send it to you. So you need to take this and you need to replace it with your own webhook. All you need to do is right click and paste your own work. And you can do it just right here. Just click this. You can sign up in Integromat. It's free account. Unless you do over 1,000, it's going to stay free. Once we have that, right, it's going to get some information. Once you have it, here's my webhook. It's going to get some information. Then what we want is we are going to send it into Google Maps, and we create something called Google Map, create an API. How would we do that? We click here, Google Maps, and we look something called create an API, make an API call. This is kind of an open-ended information. We're going to take information. It's looking for something called geocode Google or something like that. That is where our information is going to come here. We're looking for something like directions JSON. That's what we want because that's what it's telling us. We don't need this because they're already taking care of that. So it says enter path relative to API. So we want something like directions JPI. So we would put that right in here, right? Just paste that right in here. Okay, so now when we have that, now what I want to do is we're going to do something called post or patch. Both work, both post and patch work. We've used post here. So we're going to use post. Now what we want to do is we want to key add, start adding items in here. We really need to add basically three main important things. We need to add origin, we need to add destination, and we need to add waypoints, right? We have all that information. So that's just what I've done here. So inside we have content type is JSON. The headers are correct. In the query string, we want three things. We want an origin, destination, and waypoints. So now you see these things in red here. This is the information that we actually sent. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into the macro. I'm going to show you exactly how we sent origin, destination, and address. That came from our webhook, from our macro inside this. So we got the information. This is data. Origin, destination, and address is actually data from Excel. So let's get into the macro and show you exactly how we sent that data. So here is the macro. This is the optimized dating. This is the one we're going to walk through right now, and you're going to see exactly how we actually sent this information from Excel to Google. Once it's in Google, we're going to take it, we're going to basically iterate through, pull out just what we want, which is the waypoints order, bring that into a response, basically bring the correct orders, what we want, the correct order, bring it back into Excel. So that's what we're going to walk through right now. So inside this macro, this is the same exact macro that's been tied to each of these buttons here. Basically what I've done is I've created a button. Now I have the same macro that's going to be going for each one of these buttons, but I have to know what day was selected. If, for example, if I run this particular macro, if I click assign macro, we see that it's the optimize route button. It's going to be the same thing for here. If I click inside this group, assign macro, we're going to see optimize route button. But yet this day is different than this day, right? So if I have the same macro assigned to this but different days, how do I know this is day 2? How do I know this is day 1? Because they're both. Well, I can use that based on the shape name. The shape name. If you look here correctly, this is called option route button 1, and this particular icon, in case they click on, is called option route icon 2. If I click here, we're inside here, I see this is option button 2 and this is 3. So basically the differentiation is in the name of the button. So I can use that, right? I know if they click on this button, optimize route, they're going to be focused on day 1. All I need to do is extract this 1. All I need to do is extract this 1 from the button name to know which day they clicked on. We're going to use something called, let me show you inside the code here, called application caller. Application caller, that is the name of the button they clicked. So the first thing we're going to do is set application screen updating. Then I want to extract that day number. I need to know, is it day 1, 2, 3, or 7, or whatever. So how do I extract that? I notice that the number is going to be automatically at the end. So all I need to do is extract the last number, the last character of the string to know what day they've clicked on, which. And remember, now keep in mind that if you try to run this macro from here, it's going to create an error. Why is that? Why does it create an error? Because application caller is empty, right? There is no shape that called this macro. There's no shape because I ran it from here. So the only way you can do it properly, in this way, is to actually click on a button, because when you click on a button, there's actually a shape that called that macro. Okay, keep that in mind. So it won't present an error, but it will if you try to run this macro from the VBA here editor. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the name of that button, and what I want to do is I want to know the rightmost character. It's always going to be a number, right? The rightmost character. And that even if they click on the icon, make sure that if you see the icon here also has a right, it's a different name, but it's got the same number. So whether they click on the icon or whether they click on the button, it's going to optimize it. So we're going to extract that. That's going to get us our day number. Once we have a day number, I need to know what the column is. In this case, it's column 7. In this case, it's 10. In this case, 13. So how do I take a formula 1 or 2 or 3 and convert it to 7, 10, or 13? We can do that with just a little bit of math. So the schedule column is going to equal 3 times the day number minus 1. So if the day number is 1 minus 1, this is going to be 0, right? 1 minus 1 is 0. So if I multiply that times 3, I'm going to get 0 again. Plus 7, I'm going to get column 7. Now what if the day number is 3? If the day number is 3, I'm going to subtract 1, we're going to get 2. If we multiply that times 3, we're going to get 6. We're going to add 7, that's going to get us 13. So that means for day number 3, our column is 13, just what we want. This formula will get us the column number. Let's say column number. That's what we want. I want the column number. Now I know the column number based on the button they click. So I know that the column number is 13 here. If they click here, I know that the column number is, in this case, 10 if they click here, based on that formula. We need to know that formula because I need to know the date. I need to know the start date. I need to know all this information. I need to know what column they clicked on. So that's going to help. Once we have that, we can determine that. So now what I need to do is I need to get both of the origin and the destination. So basically, if in row 3 and the column plus 1, column here, plus 1 here is company address, then I know that the origin is going to be this. Otherwise, the origin is going to be this, whatever's in here. So that's just what we do inside the statement. So if cells, row 3, schedule column plus 1, remember we're doing plus 1 here. This is 1, this is plus 1. So I want to focus on this column, column H. We're looking at start and end. I want to extract those addresses to get the proper origin, to get the proper destination. So that's just what we do inside here. If the schedule equals employee address, then the origin is going to be located in B6. So either here in B6 or E3. So that's going to, we do the same thing for the end, except we're just going to be focused on row 4. So in this case, row 4, if the value equals employee address, then the destination is B6. Otherwise, the destination is, and this is going to be set destination, not origin here. The first one's origin, second one's destination. Destination. Okay, so we've set the destination and set the origin. Now all we need to do is I need to get all of the addresses on that specific day. So I would need to get all these addresses. Now it's a little bit hard here in the shapes, right? I don't want to extract them from the shapes. You know what would be a lot easier? To take this date, run it through an advanced filter on our work order list here, and pull the dates right here. So run it through an advanced filter, pull the addresses right from here. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that date, I'm going to place it right here. Then I'm going to run the advanced filter here. We're going to extract all of the job schedule for that day, and then we're going to get them right here. So that's just what we're going to do here. So let's go ahead and do that now. The schedule date is going to be equal to, again, cells, row 2, the schedule column. That's going to get us our schedule date as a whole number. That's what I want. Again, schedule date as a whole number is going to be located as long. Schedule date has been defined as long, a whole number, not necessarily as a date. Now what I want to do is I want to place that in L3, again, inside our criteria right here in L3. Then we're going to run our advanced filter. Then we're going to get our results. We know all the jobs that have been scheduled on that specific day. The last work order row, we're going to get that. I need to know, and we're going to run our advanced filter. If for some reason the last work order row is less than, this should be 3, then we're going to go to no job work orders, right? This should be 3 because we know that if the last work order is less than 3, then there's nothing else. Okay, so assuming that we have work orders, we can run our advanced filter. Now we're ready. We're going to run our advanced filter based on that specific technician and based on that date. All the results, just like we did before, we're going to run, and if there's no, we're going to get the last results row. If there's less than 3, then go to no day jobs. No day jobs is going to skip everything and go all the way down to here, okay, because there's nothing here. Okay, but assuming that there are jobs, right, we want to let the user know, and then we can go ahead and get the information. Assuming that there are jobs here, assuming that there is results, we're going to get the last row, in this case 7. I'm going to loop from 3 to 7. I want to put all of those job addresses in a single string, but I want to separate them by that pipe, right? That pipe, that's the character, that long vertical character there, that's going to be the separator for our addresses. Okay, so moving along. So now that we have that, now we can start our loop. So we got the last row, and now we're ready to run a loop for the job row equals 3 to the last results row. I want to build this string. The first thing I want to make sure is nothing, just in case. Add string is going to be able to add string plus sheet 2 s, and then that pipe character. This is going to build our addresses. So basically what we're going to be doing is looping through, starting from 3, going all the way to the end, adding each of the addresses to a string and separating them by that pipe character. Once we have that, now we've built up our add string. Now this add string contains all of our addresses. We have our origin that contains our origin address. We have our destination. Now we have everything to get the proper amount. Once we have everything, we are ready to send that information, right? Send it all the way to, using our webhook, send it to Integromat. And I'm going to include the links for Integromat down there. It's a really cool feature. If you want to sign up, just go ahead and click the link down below. Okay, so we're going to set our object HTTP to creating an XML2 server that's going to create and help us create the webhook. Now we're going to put in the webhook. This is the webhook you use. This is the same webhook that we've extracted right from here. This webhook here. This is the one we were focused on here. That's the one you want to copy and paste inside your webhook. And I want to send three things. I want to send the origin, give it a name, any name, but something you can recognize. This is the value. This is the variable. Then separated by an and sign inside there, and then put the destination, and then I go along with the destination variable here. Then again, I want to do one more thing, send the addresses and the address string. So that's going to send all the information. Once we have that information, we know that it's been received. If we take a look inside here, actually we look in the data here, the output here, or the input, actually I should say the input, we have information. We have here our origin. Here's our origin, our input, right? This is what's coming in. We have also our destination, and we have also our waypoints. Waypoints, it's going to be, we also want to put optimize true. Optimize true, that's important. Optimize true, that's what Google tells us. We need that. We want to optimize the waypoints. It's going to tell us. How do we know that? When we click here, waypoints, it says optimize waypoints. When we optimize it, how do we do that? It says optimize true. Google's telling us we need to put optimize true. Then we need to separate our waypoints by the character. So that's just what I've done inside here. I've optimized the waypoints. So when we click here, we click down here, we see that we say optimize true, optimize, and then the addresses. So I want to send that. I want to take the information. The origin is the origin, the destination, waypoints, optimize true, and all the addresses that we have. That's it. Okay, so now we've got all the information here. Now we understand how, from our macro, how we're sending this information, right? So we're sending it. Now we're going to click basically this line of code, and this line of code is just going to send it. This line actually sends it. The next step, we're waiting for the response. Our response is going to go into text. So how do we get that response? We can get that response in 𝐸 right here. So the first thing to get the response, but the first thing I want to do is I want to get all the information. I want to extract. There's a lot of information. The output, right? When we know the input, we just went over the input here. We get, remember, the origin, the destination, and of course the waypoint. So we've got the input, but what is the output? Let's look at the output. What are we getting from that? We have body, we have geocode, we have routes. We have a lot of information here. Let's take a look at that. We've got overview, polygon. What do I want? Legs, we've got information from each leg, that's information. But what I want is something called waypoints order. This is what I want. This is going to come in an array. This is the correct order. This is the best order. We gave them 0, 1. So this is going to tell us exactly what order. In other words, our first waypoint should be number 4. Our second waypoint, our second address should be number 1. Actually, our third address should be number 1 because it's 0. So it goes 0 is always first. Our fourth is number 3, and our fifth is number 2. So it's telling us the correct order based on this. Here's the correct order. So what I need to do is I need to take this and I need to put it into an array and extract the waypoints order. I need to get this. This is the correct order. 4, 1, 0, 3, 2. So what does that mean? That means when I give them these addresses right here and I optimize this, this is going to be number 4. This is going to be number 1. This is going to be 0, 3, and 2. So that's the order. So what I need to do is I need to take those and reorder those based on the suggested order that Google is telling us. So in here, here's our order. Here's the correct order. But I need to extract this. I need to put it into an array, something that we can read, something that Excel can read. And that's just what we do with our iterator. So here, our iterator is here. So we look at our input. Our input's going to be the same as what we have. Input's going to be here. Right? This is the input, the same thing that Google was the output. And what do I want the output to be? I want the output to be something very similar inside an array, but it's going to be in an array form. And that's just how we do it. So we do it through something called mapping an array. What do I want is the body, the route. How do I get that from? That's the same thing that came from here. Output, body, route. Remember, that's what I want, routes, okay? Pulling that, and we're going to extract those routes out, and we want the waypoint order. So if we look in here, we see body, we see routes, we see waypoint order. So I want the waypoint order. That's exactly what I want. Once I have that, I can then take it into Excel. So it's going to bring all that into an array. Then we get the value. This is going to return, this flow control is going to return this value. And we take a look at that, it's going to look just like this. So the input right? We have it custom. It's going to look just like this, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's exactly what we have, and it's going to be separated by commas. So when we get it back inside, it's going to be an array. So the response, this is what gets sent back to Excel. This is called webhook response. This is exactly what we get here in the response. So if I stop this code here and I take a look at this, and let's stop this here, and I take a look at this and I run this code, click optimize route, it's going to stop that right at that point. And what do I see? I get a response. Now it's going to be brackets. Look at the response here. I'll zoom into this. 41032, but it's got some brackets. I don't really need those brackets, but what I really need is that order, 41032. That is the correct order. So once we do that, I want to also remove those brackets. So I'm going to use double replace, and I'm going to take each one of those brackets and I'm going to replace them with nothing. And I'm just going to strip those brackets from this. There's no R in there. I'm just going to strip those brackets directly from that string. That's what I want. Now, if for some reason the response is scenario failed to complete or response accepted, then there might be an issue with that. So one of your addresses may be incorrect. So please double check that. Otherwise, we can now set up, now that we have it, let's continue on with this macro. Now, otherwise what we can do is continue on. So we can set the job route. Now what I want to do is I want to split that order. We got those numbers, 4, 0, 3, 2, 1. I want to take it and I want to split that response by the commas because I want to extract each one. Now I have the correct order. So what I want to do is now I have the correct order. So I'm going to go in this work order list, and instead of this order, I want to set the right order, 4, 0, 3, 2, 1, or whatever it was, right? I want to put the right order in here. Then what I want to do, now that I have the right order, now what I want to do is I want to sort it based on that right order. And another thing that I might want to do, but I didn't yet, is I want to take the original row. Here's the original row, 5, right? So 5 is the original data, and I might want to reset the order here. Reset this order based on the correct order of the day. So let's go ahead and do that. So now what I want to do is I want to get all of those information, those numbers, and I want to loop through each of those numbers. First of all, so again, I want to run a loop. So we need to reset it based on this. So I'm going to run a loop on these results, starting in 3, going to the last row, and changing the order based on what Google tells us the correct order is. So that's just what we do inside the code. For result row, starting at 3, because that's our results, for the schedule item, remember we're splitting this, equals 0 to U-bound. We're using an array. What does that mean? That means I want to loop through every single text inside this. Basically, it's just that number inside job route. I want to loop through it and extract that. The work order row, the new one, the work order row, is going to be V. This is the work order row. We might need that. Remember, V is our original row here, our original data row, because we might want to update the route. I might want to update this order in the original data. I just didn't do it in this particular training because I want to continue to optimize it. I don't want them to set, I don't want them to be permanent. Okay, so we have the original row. Now let's say we wanted to update that. What we would do is we run this. So inside this sheet 2, I've commented out sheet 2 F in the work order row equals the job route E on the end of that, just in case of your job route schedule item. This is going to be the new number, job route schedule item. What would that do? It's going to take that new order, and it's going to put it right in here. I just commented out because I didn't want to update it, but I do want to update this one. So I do want to update U. So here, sheet 2 U in the result row equals that brand new order. So we're going to, not only are we looping through every response in that, every number inside that response, getting that updated number. Then what we're going to do is result row equals result row plus 1. What does that mean? Why do we do that? Because we've already done 3. We've already updated the new order. Remember, in this case, it's 4, right? Let's go ahead and show you what that would look like. I'm going to pause it right here, and I'm going to run this on inside this so we can see that. Just remember 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, it's all in order. So what does it look like now? When I optimize it, scheduling, and I click optimize, what does that look like? The code's going to stop in a second. Okay, it's stopped. That's what I want. So now let's take a look at the new order. Back into the work order list. Now we take a look at it. We see the new order, 41032. So this is the response from Google telling us this is the correct order. This job should come first. This job should come second. this should come third, this fourth, and this fifth. That's the correct order based on the lowest distance and lowest drive time. So now all we need to do, once we have that, now I just need to resort this list based on the new order. Once I resort it, I just need to rebuild the days. So that's just what we want to do. So let's continue with this macro. So now what we want to do is resort the list. So let's go ahead and put a stop here, run the macro. Now the list is going to be resorted. We're going to sort, again, based on the U, based on the last results row. So once we resorted the list, it's now resorted. Remember, now we have the right address, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now we have the right order. Now all I need to do is take these addresses and then update our scheduling to put them in the right order. So now I just have to move them. So if we take a look here, now let's bring this down here like this and continue with the rest of our macro. I'm going to bring it down. So now let's continue, play it, and you'll see that those get automatically resorted. So that's just what we get to do here. So let's take a look at that. And now they get automatically resorted. Okay, let's go ahead and put out these stops. Let's go ahead and refresh the list so that we can get back to the way we were. All right, now that the list is refreshed, reset this code, update the code, refresh the schedule. So now we have the weighted back order. So when we optimize this, we want them I want them switched around. Let's pull out that stop. There we go. So now we see that they've all been rearranged. So I also want a visual. I want to see that they're being rearranged. So now in the next part of our code, that's what we're going to do. So we've resorted them. They're sorting. Now we're going to clear out the string, and now I want to do application screen updating true. But now what I want to do is I want to reset the order. So how do we do that? Okay, so the best way to do that, again, is to run another loop. Now we've got our correct order. So now what I want to do is I want to run a loop from 3 all the way to the last row, place them in the correct order. First thing I want to do is determine the shape name. Shape is day, the day number, the job, plus whatever is in sheet 2P, right? We know the job is going to be located in P. So I'm going to build that shape name. And I also want to do the address string. What is the address string? It's going to be equal to the address and sheet 2. We're going to build the new address. This one I don't need this code. That was for something else. Okay, so the destination row. What is the destination row? It's going to be, in this case, what is the destination row? We know this, we want this in the first position, right? We want this located in row 6, right? So if we know the first one's going to be in row 6, the second one's going to be row 6, it's going to be basically our position here, this number plus 6, this number plus 6, this number plus 6. That's going to get us our number. That's going to get us our row. So that's just what we do here. So the destination row is going to be equal to whatever's in U plus 6. That gives us our destination, then the new row. What is the current row? Well, the current row is whatever the current shape is. So the sheet 7, right? The shapes, the shape name, top left cell row. I want to know the current row. So the current row, so it's got to go from the current row to the destination. Now I want to measure the distance between it because I want a kind of a nice effect. Even if we can make it slower a little bit, but I want an effect so I can actually see those jobs moving around. When I click optimize route, I want to see these things. If we click here, it's already been optimized. Let's click here. This one's not optimized yet. So I want to see the effect. I want to see that, but it's a little bit fast. We can even slow it down a little bit. If I change this to 40 or 40, put more steps in between here, we can actually see the effect. Let's try it with a third one here. Click optimize route, and we see it's a little bit slower. I like that a little bit better. So let's refresh it so that we can optimize everything one more time. And let's take a look at this. So now we actually see a nice visual of the routes getting optimized. See that? It's kind of cool. It shows you that. So I want that visual of them getting optimized so I can see them being rearranged. So the first thing, so we've got the destination, we've got the current. Now I need to know the distance. What is the distance between the destination row and the current? Well, that's going to be, again, A in the destination row, the top of the destination row minus the current row. It could be a negative or a positive. This is the distance between the difference. So if it's going to be moving up, the distance is going to be a negative. If it's moving down, the distance is going to be positive. Once I have that distance, I know the difference between where it should be and where it currently is. So once we have that distance, we can then run. We can move increment. I can set an increment. And so basically we're going to move it in increments. Obviously you wouldn't need this, you could just move it directly to the shape, but I like a nice visual. So when we click optimize, it really shows things moving around like that. I like that. So we use an increment for that. So basically I'm going to set a move from 1 to 40. You can use any number you want. The smaller the number, the faster it's going to move. The larger the number, the slower it's going to move. We also want to put a little wait time in there. If I added 2 to this, it's going to be even slower. So let's take a look at what that might look like. If we click optimize route, it'd probably be a little bit too slow for this training. And click, let's try this one here, optimize route. That's a little bit slow, but you can see it gets an idea. So you can adjust the speed and the weight. Let's put this back to number 1. So basically what I want to do is I want to set the top position of our shape equal to the top position plus the distance divided by 40. This 40 is the same number of increments. That way it's going to be, its final position will be in the destination row, okay? That's all we have to do. This is going to actually move our shape into place. That is it. That's all we need to do. Exit sub, and then if for some reason there's no internet, please check your internet connection. If there's an issue there, it could happen. Okay, that is it. That's all we have to do to automatically optimize the route. I'm glad I got to show this to you. If you do like these trainings, you want to help support us, I've got a 150 workbook application. It's just 37 cents per workbook template. It's an amazing deal. I've sold tons of them, so I hope you go ahead and pick that up. That'll help support us. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next.